Until the subconscious becomes conscious, it controls us, and we call it fate. What does that mean? The words of Carl Jung. What is the subconscious? What is conscious? And what's fate? How does the subconscious control us? Well, when we repress emotions, you wouldn't believe the effect it has on our decision-making processes every day of our lives. Now, for those of you who wish to understand why you're anxious, what to do about it, how to release repressed emotions that are controlling you constantly, how to bring them to the conscious, how to express them in a safe way, then stick around. I'm about to tell you a personal story that I experienced very recently of exactly this process that I went through. If you want to understand more about it, stick around and listen to this. Very recently, I had an experience with someone who's extremely close to me emotionally, who was put into a position where it was quite difficult for them, both physically and emotionally. I immediately became really angry, straight away, in a disproportionate way, honestly, to what was going on. I wasn't responsible for what was happening. Why was I so angry about what was happening? I was angry at the people who were doing this to my friend. Now, if you understand and have looked at one of my other videos about anger, you understand that we become angry because we don't want to feel another emotion. It gives us permission for ourselves to take an emotion, put it somewhere else, to another person, another event, instead of owning it. Sometimes we do that because it's a very difficult emotion that we didn't feel safe at some point to express, or worse still, we want to hang on to it because we feel like we deserve to hold on to it. We deserve to feel shame or guilt because we are guilty. We haven't actually acknowledged the reality that we might not be. This was the case for me in this scenario. This person was placed under huge duress while terribly fatigued. And because I care very much about this person, for me it seemed as if the anger surrounding that was actually legitimate. But it wasn't. Because when I began to express that anger, when I began to let it out after actually fighting it to begin with, being authentic to myself and saying I deserve to release this emotion of anger, as it began to flow through me and leave, as emotions do when we allow them to be expressed, I started to feel something else. Something a little surprising. I was feeling inadequate for the fact that I had been unable to prevent what had happened to my friend. I felt a sense of shame that made no sense. I wasn't responsible for what happened to them. I wasn't the person who did it to them, and I certainly wasn't the person who was supposed to be standing in the gap, preventing it from happening. So why was I feeling that? I had to really analyze it. Because I'd allowed myself to feel the anger, I allowed myself to expose an emotion that lay beneath it. I felt shame. Where was that shame coming from? The reality was that that event that my friend was experiencing triggered me into an emotion that was connected with a past event deep in my past, in my history, that I hadn't let go of. I felt shame connected to not being able to prevent harm occurring, or not being able to look after people who I was responsible for, because I was made to feel, by my own permission, that I was inadequate, and I wasn't good enough to care for those people who I was supposed to look after. That was a reality that I hadn't released. There was an emotion of shame connected with that, with people who I love very much, that I hadn't expressed. And I pushed it down. And when I experienced the new scenario of my friend in a situation where I could not prevent the harm from occurring to them, I was triggered into this feeling of shame from my past. So I was holding that emotion of shame subconsciously, didn't even know it. And this is a perfect example of what Carl Jung was talking about, when a subconscious emotion is repressed and then it's brought to conscious. And I can rationalize with it, I can control it, I can express it, and I can release it. Then in future, when I'm experiencing similar events, guess what? There's no anger. There's only a moderate version of you, a moderate version of me, that's going to be there for you and there for those who you love. A tower of strength, the person that you need to be for yourself and for those who you love. Now, you should never give yourself a hard time about getting it wrong. I mean, I know life coaches who get it wrong. So when you discover a trigger, and everyone has them, and you find yourself behaving in a way that probably you shouldn't have, those who love you the most will not judge you. If you are being judged and maligned for a single event, for a single behavior, and not supported through it, they're the wrong people for you. Ask yourself the question, who you're surrounding yourself with. And when you haven't got the support, it makes it very difficult for you to reach out and find that emotion and let it out. Sometimes you want to be by yourself, but often us as people who are designed for connection do need support. If you have people who will understand you, not judge you, allow you to get through that process, then gather them around you, explain to them what you're trying to achieve. If you need assistance through this process, or if you need assistance in anything else emotional, where you're finding your anxieties taking control, you can't find your way through this process, reach out to me. This is what I do. I help people find their most moderate version of themselves, to rebuild their lives, to rebuild their relationships.